By 1941, Britain's fleet was stretched thin. Losses in the Mediterranean and the Atlantic were mounting. Cruisers, these fast, versatile guardians of the sea lanes, were being sunk faster than they could be replaced. To fill this gap, naval designers looked to improve upon the proven Fiji-class light cruisers. But war has its own priorities. And while 12 ships were ordered, only 3 would ever see completion before the war's end. The plan called for a dozen ships. But wartime resources were scarce, and priorities shifted constantly. The Royal Navy needed aircraft carriers desperately. So, 3 of the planned Minotaurs were cancelled in 1942 to make way for the Colossus-class light fleet carriers. Another, likely to have been named Mars, was cancelled before it left the drawing board. A later hull, Bellerophon, was started but never finished, its boilers and turbines removed and installed instead in those very same carriers, Colossus and Perseus. By 1944, only 3 Minotaurs remained active projects. The rest lay dormant, suspended between war and obsolescence. When they finally entered service, each ship bore the marks of hurried innovation and shifting naval doctrine. The Minotaur-class wasn't revolutionary in size or firepower, but in concept. Their hulls were only a modest enlargement of the Fiji-class, yet their systems hinted at the next era of naval warfare. Each ship carried 9 6-inch guns, in 3 triple turrets, backed by 4 twin dual-purpose mounts at 4-inch. But the real advancement wasn't what they carried, it was how they fought. The Minotaurs introduced integrated command and control systems, early precursors to the modern operations room, a nerve center where radar, fire control, and communications merged into one coordinated brain. For the first time, the Royal Navy's cruisers were beginning to think collectively. HMS Swiftsure, launched in 1943, became the most distinguished of the trio. Fast, elegant, and reliable, she was chosen as the flagship of the British Pacific Cruiser Squadron. When Japan surrendered in 1945, it was Admiral Cecil Harcourt who hoisted the flag aboard Swiftsure as he sailed into Hong Kong to accept the formal Japanese surrender of the colony. At that moment, the Swiftsure became a symbol not of combat, but of liberation. Her sister ship, HMS Minotaur, saw her fate tied not to Britain, but to the Dominion across the Atlantic. Transferred to the Royal Canadian Navy, she was renamed Ontario. Ontario would serve Canada faithfully for over a decade. Training cadets, patrolling coasts, and representing Canadian power, before being retired quietly in 1958. The third ship, HMS Superb, arrived too late to fire a shot in anger. Completed after the war, she embodied the rapid technological change, sweeping through navies worldwide. Her radar and fire control systems, Type 274 and Type 275, offered remarkable accuracy. Yet even as she was commissioned, her design was already being overtaken by new realities, guided missiles, jet aircraft, and nuclear propulsion. So the Minotaur-class was never truly one single design. By 1944, the 7 hulls under construction represented for distinct groups, each so different, they could almost be called separate classes. Swiftsure carried the Type 274 radar, the Royal Navy's first reliable lock-and-follow system, which allowed her guns to track targets automatically, an enormous leap forward. Superb went a step further, with Type 275 radar, designed to guide anti-aircraft fire. Then came the next evolution, ships like Tiger and Blake, redesigned from unfinished Minotaur hulls, to carry triple 6-inch automatic turrets capable of engaging both ships and aircraft. These new Tigers were to become the Royal Navy's most advanced gun cruisers, a vision of automation, radar integration, and dual-purpose weaponry. The Minotaurs underwent many refits, each reflecting the Royal Navy's struggle to modernize in a rapidly changing world. Swiftsure, at first, carried a heavy anti-aircraft battery, 16 twin and 6 single 20mm Ehrlichons. But by 1945, these were replaced by more potent 40mm Bofors guns, a trend across the fleet. Ontario, her Canadian counterpart, followed a similar pattern, eventually standardizing 6 40mm and 6 20mm single mounts. Superb, finished even later, carried an eclectic mix, 8 40mm Bofors, a few aging 2-pounders, and several 20mm mounts, reflecting both wartime shortages and post-war improvisation. But modernization was costly. In 1953, Swiftsure suffered a collision with the destroyer HMS Diamond in the Caribbean. The damage was extensive, but instead of scrapping her, the Admiralty decided to rebuild her, almost entirely. Her reconstruction, inspired by the massive refit of HMS Belfast, aimed to transform Swiftsure into a modern command cruiser. New radars, new fire control systems, and the promise of automatic weapons loomed on the drawing boards. But reality intervened once again. Her beam, just 63 feet, was too narrow to fit the powerful twin 3-inch automatic guns then being tested. Power systems had to be converted from DC to AC, structural cracking slowed progress, and the last of the available gun mounts were already outdated by the time the hull was ready. By 1961, the Royal Navy had spent nearly £1 million trying to revive Swiftsure. But without modern weapons to match her electronics, the project was quietly abandoned. She would never return to sea. The completion of the Tiger-class cruisers, at a staggering £35 million, drew fierce political criticism. The new automatic guns, meant to fire with speed and precision, jammed frequently. Engineers worked tirelessly to fix the faults, but the damage was done, not just to the guns, but to the Navy's faith in them. The Americans and Soviets had already moved on, abandoning heavy gun cruisers entirely for missile-armed ships. And Britain, too, would soon follow. The Minotaur lineage, once a symbol of cutting-edge naval design, became a relic of an era when the gun was king. The Minotaur-class never fought a great battle. They never fired broadsides in anger, nor turned the tide of war. And yet, their legacy is quietly profound. They marked a turning point, the moment when ships began to fight not just with steel and fire, but with information, radar, electronics, coordination. Swiftshure's radar and control systems laid the groundwork for future integration aboard the Royal Navy's post-war fleet. Her sister Superb carried the seeds of technology that would influence designs well into the missile age. And HMCS Ontario, the former Minotaur, carried her British craftsmanship into Canadian service, bridging two navies and two generations of sailors. Even the unfinished hulls found new life, reborn as Tigers, later transformed again into helicopter cruisers, a desperate but imaginative adaptation in an age of shrinking budgets and expanding threats. From their keels to their concepts, the Minotaur-class was never about glory, but about evolution. By the 1970s, the last of the gun cruisers were fading away. Missiles now replaced turrets. Helicopters replaced scout planes. And computers replaced men with rangefinders. The Royal Navy's final two hybrid cruisers, Tiger and Blake, carried on into the 1980s, their aft decks transformed into helicopter hangars, their guns silent, their radars glowing softly in the dusk. When they were finally decommissioned, the curtain closed not only on the Tigers, but on the Minotaurs as well. The last echoes of a class that began as light cruisers in World War II, and ended as command ships in the Cold War. From the guns of war to the age of radar, the Minotaurs were more than ships. They were the bridge between centuries. From the gun decks to the bridge, every story we tell honors those who served. If this tale made you feel the salt and steel of history, give it a like, and if you're not yet part of our channel's convoy, subscribe and join the ranks. More powerful stories await.